Hi everyone, we're back with the 2020 Biz Kickstart event, and I'm joined with LeeAnne, who's going to talk to us all about the M word, all about money, all about finances and what we can do. How can we manage it? How can we use it as a tool to help us rather than use it to stop us and hold us back? So LeeAnne, say hey to everyone that's tuned in and tell us a bit about you and how you got started.
Hi, everybody. I'm LeeAnne Chan. I am a financial planner, financial coach, and soon to be financial therapist. I got started originally. I was in a really bad relationship. A couple of different things was going on. I never learned about money from my parents, and one parent had a hoarding issue with money, and the other parent had a spending issue with money. So I never really learned anything there. And then I turned around, and as a very young adult, I had a child, and I was in a really bad relationship. And that guy, he, not only him, I mean, I had something to do with it, but my money was just going out the window. I had to spend it, or he was going to spend it. And it was just a really bad place. And I was trying to think of a way that I can help empower people to learn how to live with money. And that's kind of how it was born into existence for me. Is I had an aha moment, and I said, I really want to help people, and this is how I'm going to do it. And it's my whole goal, and my whole education has been about teaching people about finances, teaching them about credit cards and budgeting, credit scores, just money in general. I don't have any plans to ever sell services, because I want to be what they call a true fiduciary. And that is to consult with people, to teach them. So when they go to these important meetings that are selling products or any kind of sales, really, they already have the tools necessary to be able to control that meeting. They know what to expect from these individuals that are selling securities or selling cars or homes. They know to ask, what kind of fees do you charge? What am I getting out of this? And how is the stock market working? And what does your company do? It's no longer about letting the salespeople control you. We're now in that area where you need to control your situation. And if you don't feel comfortable with the sale, walk away. There's so many other people that'll be right behind you trying to help you out. So
It does seem like a bit of a minefield, doesn't it? Because there's so much, so much information out there, so many different tools that we can use, so many people saying the same thing in a dozen different ways. It can be so hard for people to make sense of it all. But then as we spoke about before we went live, it's becoming the responsibility of the business owner, the responsibility of the entrepreneur to ask these questions, to really know enough about their finances, enough about what they want to ask better questions. It's almost like, as the business owner, you need to know enough about everything to be able to hire the right staff. So if you're hiring a social media expert, if you know nothing about social media marketing, you're never going to be able to hire the best person, because you can't ask the right questions.
yes.
So I feel like finance is definitely becoming the same thing. Like, we just have anyone that uses long words, right? If we don't know what we're talking about, someone that sounds like they know what they're talking about can come across as if they know that they're talking about, but they don't. And then they can make a right mess of it sometimes. And I know people that have had mix-ups with their finances because they've missed something out on one of their spreadsheets, or deals went bad, but they've put them through because the timing issue of some of the paperwork. And it can be a massive mess when it comes to managing finances. So what are some of the things that we need to know? What are some of the things that we need to know as business owners so that we can ask these better questions?
One, you need to know yourself. That's the goal. The goal is, if you find the right financial advisor They will work with you. They will listen to what your goals are. So, for example, I do mostly personal finance. So I have a lot more personal financial like related topics, but say if you want to buy a home and you go into a realtor and you say, hey, I want a home, 4 bedrooms, whatever. And you don't give them a whole lot of information. They just start showing you every 4-bedroom home in the city that you're looking at. And you're like, wow, why are you keep showing me this junk? I don't want this stuff. And then it's easier for them to talk you into, oh, it's not junk, just put nice fresh paint on it or whatever. And you're like, so you buy this home that you didn't really want because you weren't specific about what you wanted. And then you're stuck with it. And you're like, wow, I really shouldn't have bought this. I shouldn't have let him talk me into it. I shouldn't have let her talk me into it. But it wasn't that they talked you into it. You didn't know what you wanted. So that's they're salespeople. That's their job, is to tell you what they think you want. Well, if you go in and you say, okay, I know my finances are, I can afford $100,000 home easy. And I know I want 4 bedrooms and I want a garage and I want a pond in the backyard. You go in, you tell them that I want this, this, and this, and tell them you don't want to see anything else. They're going to still try to do their sales, but you say, no, that's not what I asked for. That's not what I want. I mean, you do have to be a little bit giving, but in certain things, why should you? And that should be with your finances as well. You go in and you can do a risk assessment and learn, wow, I really, at my age, and I have 40 years to retire, that means I can be riskier. And that way you're not getting yourself shortchanged over the long term. And so basically what you need to know is you need to know you. You need to know your risk levels. You need to know your current finances. You need to know your financial situation, which you can do yourself before you go talk to somebody. And if you can't, that's what coaches are for. That's kind of what I do. I'm a financial planner and a coach. And what I do is we sit down and figure out what your values are. And based on your values, we create goals for you. Once we have a good game plan, you can go into these meetings with these advisors, with the lawyers, with the accountants, and you can say, this is what I want. I've really thought through it. And can you offer that to me? And if you don't feel like they're going to work with you personally, or if they're going to work with you in your best financial interest, that's when you can very confidently cut ties with them. Okay, sorry, I don't think what you're offering is what I'm looking for quite yet. So, and it does, it boosts your confidence to where you can actually have these conversations with these people. And you don't have to know what their job is. You just have to know what you want and what your risk levels are. So
it's interesting that you mentioned that because everyone's going to be different, isn't it? Everyone's going to have their own thing that they want, whether it's a house, whether it's they want to invest in stocks and bonds, or they want to invest in companies, or they want to invest in a company, they want to buy a company that's already established, they want to whatever it happens to be. But you can't go in and go, okay, I want to invest in stocks and shares, because they're just going to throw everything at you. If you go, I want to invest in the health sector, to do with, I don't know, my head's just gone blank. It could be like the health sector, but like extending lifespan, right? So you're looking at companies to do with inflammation, gut health, microbiome, stress reduction, all those things. And
I always laugh about
easier.
I always laugh about the health sector because I'm not sure about the world, but I know our baby boomers here, that was the largest generation that we had for the longest time. Well, they're starting to get up there in age, and they're going to need Depends, adult diapers, and they're going to start needing more medical supplies and all this stuff. So I always laugh and say, maybe people should start investing right now into the Depends companies and, you know, medical supplies companies, just
Yeah,
because of the aging population. And that's something else to consider is just look around you. Our world can tell you what's going on right now. And it's like, okay, we know that our population is starting to age. They're going into retirement. So what do they need? They need, you know, nursing homes or nursing cares and stuff like that. So, and like you said, companies that do about longevity, you know, creating, you know, longevity. So those are great companies to look into. And as long as you're diversified in your portfolio, you're good. You can do a couple things that's not so popular right now, because I tell you what, when you get the popular going down, it balances out. And that's how you keep, the more diversified you are, the better off you'll be.
are there any key things that you think that we need to know? Is there anything that you think that people overlook maybe that can make all the difference when it comes to managing finances or being able to make good use of our money as well? Because sometimes money can just sit there for some people and we're not really doing the right things with it. Is there anything
Well,
that you tend to see that's being overlooked right now?
yes, emergency funds are always being overlooked. Just because I'm here in the United States, a lot of people don't have, 60% of people do not have $1,000 sitting into a bank account right now to pay when their car breaks down. Our car's in the shop right now and they wanted to charge us $1,100. If I didn't have that, how am I going to get my car? And if I don't have my car, how am I going to get my kids to their practices? People forget you have to have an emergency fund. And when you don't, what do? You overspend on your credit card. You overspend on your credit card, there goes the rates. You pay all these rates, and most of your credit card, the money goes to the interest, not to the actual credit card itself. So one of the biggest overlooked things is an emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
Great. So if you don't have your physiological taken care of, if you don't have your safety taken care of, if you don't have the feeling of love and belonging taken care of, you can't ever get to self-actualization. You can't ever get to your esteem. So that's very similar to finances. If you don't have your basic needs taken care of, if you're about ready to lose your home and you don't have, your electric's going to get shut off, don't worry about saving. Worry about getting those taken care of first. Once you got that taken care of, then you got to start thinking about like your credit cards. Where's all your money going that you almost lost your house and your electric's getting turned off? Take care of those, but at the same time, you have to take care of your emergency fund. So even if it's $25 a week for right now, throw that into some kind of savings account, and then when you can get that big enough, then you can throw it into a money market account where you can earn more interest. But whatever you do, you got to get started, because you may not need that $25 this week or next month, but in 6 months, when that's built up to a few $100s, you may need it then. And try so hard not to use credit cards for your emergency fund. It doesn't make any sense, because it just drags you right back down and you're right back in the mud where you started. So I would say the biggest thing people need to understand is get their basic needs met, and then right above, if you are having housing problems, get that taken care of, and then start your emergency fund at the same time that you're clearing credit. So that way, because you do need your credit cards to not be there, but you should have them, because it does help build your credit. But I would say emergency funds the most important at this point.
What about people that are, they've got a lot of, so there could be people out there that have different accounts for different things. So they might have a credit card, they might have a savings account, they might have a business account, and then they've got to balance different accounts at the same time. Is there a way of doing that that's not as stressful? Is there any like softwares or apps or something that you would suggest for people to manage different accounts at the same time?
Well, it's kind of like one of those, you have an account for specific reasons. So you have a credit card account that should be like, you went through your emergency fund and now you need a little bit of credit to help you get through whatever you're getting through. So then you have I would do a savings account for your emergency fund. And weekly, if you go to work or however you handle your finances, however your money gets from your business, or if you work at a job into your checking, then you take automatically just $25 automatically comes out the same day that you get your paycheck in. That way you don't even see that. You just don't even look at your emergency fund. That does not exist unless you have an emergency. Obviously, check it every now and then, make sure somebody didn't hack into it and steal your money. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like a set it and forget it. You got it set up where $25 is coming out of your main account into there, and just don't look at it. You don't have an emergency, so why do you need it? So don't pretend that that's something that you can spend. I do a couple different savings account, an emergency savings, which can turn into a mutual fund, anything that you can get the money out immediately. Yeah. And then you can have a checking account, or a savings account, say that you're trying to save up, you want to buy a new car and you want a down payment. So you decide how much money you can take out of your normal checking account to put in there, and then only use that money when you reached your goal. Say you want $2,000 for a down payment. Just keep putting money in there every week. Again, set it and forget it. And then when you get, every now and then check on it, make sure money's going in there the way it's supposed to. And when you're ready, that's when you take that out. And then you got your bills checking account. Mm-hmm. Now you can use the savings account, the one for the goals. You can have all your goals into that. Just know, okay, this is for this goal. That's, this amount of money is for that goal. But your checking account, the one that you pay all your bills in, I would only keep a little buffer in there of, extra money so it doesn't overdraft or anything. But mm-hmm. Take anything excess out. You need an emergency fund. Take that money out first thing. You're saving up for a goal. Take that money out, very second thing. And just leave what you need money for. And I would definitely think about having a separate, and I know it's starting to get up to be a lot of accounts, but that way what's going on. It's almost like the envelope system. Yeah. So you have another separate checking account that's connected to your debit card. And then that's the money you can go buy groceries with. If you want to go to the movies, that's the one you swipe for the movies. So you don't touch your bills account. You just pay bills with the one. You don't have to have it that way. As long as you're very detailed, you can, if you want, you can keep a couple accounts. But I would always, if you're having a rough time trying to differentiate what money's supposed to go where, for a time being, it's okay to have those separate accounts. Just because, and if you want, I always keep the same bank. Honestly, I don't have 15 banks because that's a little bit too hard to track everything. But my bank does one hub and you can see all the accounts right there.
Yeah, mine's the same. I've got sort of one bank and I've got like three or four accounts with my own. So that's sort of my own sort of personal way of doing it. Because luckily, some of them have different names. So I've got so I go savings account. Well, I guess that's for the savings. I've got like checking accounts or current accounts, and they've all got like weird names, some of them, which is handy because I go, well, that one is for the emergency fund. If anything breaks, that is where I go. Yeah. And some people have like holiday funds and travel funds, and some people have like do what you want money that goes into that. So people that like to, just give to charities or just blow money on a holiday, or let's go out for a meal. That's sort of the do what you want money. Then you've got the holiday fund. I know people that have holiday funds. I find it quite funny. And then because I think that's at least in the beginning, that's a good way of doing it. And I think that's actually a wise move as well. Because just off the top of my head, you probably have different thoughts on this, but if you have, we use a holiday fund as an example, if you have a holiday fund that you put money into every so often that builds up, you can turn around and go, oh, I can go on holiday this year because I've got this amount in the holiday fund. Where if you're staring at one account that all the money goes into and that's it, you look at it and go, can I go on holiday? I don't know if I've got enough for holiday and food and everything else and the emergency fund because it's all in the one account.
Well, and what's worse than just what you just said is people say, oh, I'll just take some of my bill money and go on holiday vacation and and I'll just make up the bill money later. And that's what ends up happening. And that's how people end up spiraling out of control is they say, oh, well, I might have enough, but I'm going to take a little bit of my electric bills, or I might just don't pay extra on my credit card, and I might just use that extra money to go on vacation. And that's how bills get behind, is because they don't have a dedicated vacation holiday fund. They don't have a dedicated whatever savings goal you're having. So, and you end up spending because what sounds fun, paying a credit card or going on vacation?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
So people tend to do what is more fun for them at the time. So.
Yeah, I think as well, if you think about it in that way, like if people have got lots of money building up in their, I don't know, just think about the savings, let's say. So not specifically for the holiday, but like rainy day money, right? And they've got more than they need to go in to the credit card payment fund. There's an element of like you can set less to go in. So you've got more left over to go into the other funds, if that makes sense. So it's probably more about managing how much goes where rather than taking money out of a different account to spend somewhere else. Because if you can afford to do that, then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, surely you just put less in the account at the time and you'll never have to dip into it, because when it goes in, it goes out, and it goes in, and it goes out, and there isn't an absolute ton left over sat there, and you don't know what to do with it. So I think that's like my first thought then is, well, if you're able to pay off your credit card, you've got enough for as many holidays as you deem that you want. You've got enough for your emergency fund if something breaks, and you still got more money than you need left over, right? Like what should people do with that? And I say that as someone that I know people that live this way. And I know people that go, well, when I go on holiday, I go all out for my holidays.
Yeah.
Some people have like the business class, you know, the little pods with the TV and the bed and all that. They've got the 5-star hotels. Some of them even, they kind of like do the whole Airbnb thing. Some of them have, I mean, as crazy as it gets, I know someone that actually has like houses where they go regularly, and it gets a bit intense. So their travel fund has to include like the rent for each of the places where they stay. It just gets a bit silly. I'm not gonna lie, it gets a bit ridiculous. But there are people that can live that way. There are people that can do it, and I think go on.
I have 6 kids, so every time we go somewhere, just imagine if you're single and it's just you pay for one person. I have to pay for 6. So I get the renting a house, and we rent a house when we go because it's like, if not, we can't afford to eat.
Yeah, so, I imagine hotels get expensive when there's like
they get expensive, and then you got to eat out, and it would cost us at least $150 a meal eating out. You know, maybe $100 for breakfast, but that gets to be expensive every day. So I totally get that. We drive everywhere because United States is so big. We got plenty to do here, and we drive, no fly, and we just rent houses.
Yeah, but so there is a different way. But I think that when when people start going down the road of dipping into different accounts to pay for other things, I think just sort of circling back round it, it's almost like you didn't set it up in the right way to begin with.
Yeah.
Almost. Like
Yep.
if you're able to dip into like your emergency fund, I mean, granted, emergency, you never know how big the emergency is going to be. Like if your car breaks and your washing machine breaks and you know the kids are ill or something like that, and it's like, oh my god, I need the thousands of pounds to be able to do, or the thousands of dollars in America to be able to do this thing, and you dip. You know, it's very hard to predict those sort of emergencies if like 3 or 4 things happen at once. So that's probably the wrong fund to dip into.
With emergency funds, with that said, the benchmark that we look for as planners, and it's the bare minimum benchmark, is 3 to 6 months worth of your bills. Because now this emergency fund is for the washing machine that breaks. It is for the car that breaks down. But it's also for what happens if you get sick, or say you were on vacation and you were rock climbing and you broke your back. It takes 6 months for you to heal. You can't work for 6 months. You need to look at all your spending, all your utilities, everything but basically like tax bills. And you need to have 3 to 6 months minimum in your accounts to pay your bills while you're mending. And a good planner will try to work with their clients on getting to at least 1 to 2 years. Because what if you have a job and we have a really sour economy and you lose your job? Well, everybody's losing their job. You can't just go out and find one. This one took quite some time to recover from the 2008, 2009 era.
Yeah.
So you want to have that money to live on. So when we talk emergency savings, we're talking in terms of how much you spend a month on your bills, and multiply that by the bare minimum of 3 to 6 months.
Got it.
So,
yeah.
and that is money that you can get a hold of rather quickly. So that's where you want to put, like, savings accounts around here is not very good. You're not even earning what inflation is around here. So you want to look at things like mutual funds and money market accounts, something in those areas. And it's really easy. It's almost like a checking account. You write the check for the funds that you need. You could put it into your account where you spend your bills, but you definitely need to have that money available to you kind of fast. It's almost like monetary. It's almost just like just having cash on hand. It's that easy to get a hold of. And I would say the same for your goals, like your vacation goals and your purchases, that in those kind of accounts too, something that's going to earn you money, but it's something that you can get access to rather quickly. And then if you're lucky enough to be able to have excess money, you really need to start being concerned about retirement, whether you have 20 years left or 40. If you start saving sooner, you're going to end up getting more in the long run. I'll give you an example. I was just talking to my son. I told him he just purchased a brand new car. We just did a coaching session and he got the car he wanted, everything. And then I said, okay, so now you got to start getting your emergency fund set up. And he doesn't have very many bills, just the car payment and 2 credit cards, both paid off every month. So really doesn't have a lot of bills. And then I told him, I said, because you've got these needs met, you need to work on retirement goals. I said, the sooner you do it, the more money you're going to get. So he's looking into his Works 401k program that matches. He's going to put in $50 a paycheck, so $100 a month. That's going to, between that and the employer match, he's going to have almost about $160,000 at retirement. I was like, just by putting $50 a paycheck in, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when your employer matches it and you compound it for that long, I mean, it really does add up. I think in total, he might put $20,000 of his own money, and he's going to have $150,000 or so later. So
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for the sooner you can plan for the future, the better off you are. I
yes,
mean,
yep,
I don't know how old your son is, but if the retirement age shifts by the time he gets there, we could end up with more, right? So
yep.
there's that
He's he's 20
whole
right
sense of
now.
like the world could change by the time he gets halfway there, and then it's like, oh, I could get more now, or I could get
Yep,
less now. But I think having that there, having a sort of an idea on how much that you can get,
yep.
um, is definitely something that is worth doing. The earlier you can do it.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, when you're 20 years old, $50, and you're going to put that same $50. I mean, obviously, as you get older and you have more, more excess money, you want to start putting a little bit more in there.
Yeah.
But $50, if you just did $50 your whole life, that's really not a lot of money. And as opposed to if me at my age, I'm not quite 40, if I put $50 in there, I'm going to get 30, 40, maybe even $50,000 less than what he's going to put that same amount in starting now.
Yeah.
So, and it's amazing. My money is going to have to work harder for me right now because of the time frame is smaller.
That makes perfect sense, actually. It's because it is the compound effect, isn't it? Because
yes, yep.
you earn interest on the amount that you put in, but you also get interest on the amount that's already in there.
Yes, yep.
As well.
So it just eventually what it's going to be is you're going to have more interest in there than what you have principal. So, and that's kind of the reverse effect of car payments. At first, you're going to pay more interest and less towards the principal, but as you start paying it, then you're going to go more principal and less interest to pay. So, credit cards, houses, any big purchases, it's in the opposite direction. Same exact thing, opposite direction.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it, and I think that a lot of people watching might be thinking about, right, what about like quick wins for me then? What about quick ways of doing things? What about investing? What can I do to make my money work for me? Because some people might have money but not really sure what to do with it. Yeah, so if someone, I mean, we can sort of we can look at different brackets if you wanted to. We could say, okay, if you've got up to $1,000 lying around, what would you do with that?
Well, $1,000, if that's all you have, it's hard to get with an investment advisor around here. A lot of advisors like you to have at least 50,000 sitting around. So just because they're not going to make any money off of you, and they don't want to work that hard for their money. But if you just have a few $1,000s, if you're just getting started, I would start rolling it into bigger accounts as you go until you get enough money to where you can go to an investment advisor and they can sell you their products, whatever it is. But you can start with going to your bank, asking them what kind of investments do you guys have going on. They'll tell you about money markets around here. I think my money market, you can get one for $1,000 to start. And then the mutual funds, I think, is $10,000. And of course, what they do is they buy blocks of investments. They take your money along with your neighbor's money and everybody's money. They pull it in one, and they buy huge blocks of investments with that money. And that's where you get your return. So you're going to get more than, say, if you had just a checking account. And then, one second. Excuse me. So basically, when she hit milestones, then you kind of take that pot of money and put it elsewhere. And then you can just keep going like that. The key with investments is diversification. That is the absolute most valuable thing that you should know, because not everything, when we have a recession, not everything goes down. Other programs go up. So if you have your money in all these different pots, it ends up evening out. Yeah, you're going to lose some money somewhere, but you're also gaining some money somewhere else. So the key is, if you're starting small, start with a savings account or even a CD, something small like that, and then just build your way up. So as you start hitting these goals, start putting your money in higher things, something that earns you more interest. You definitely have to take into consideration your age. You have to take into consideration that you're not overspending on credit cards. There is absolutely no point in saving money if you have credit cards. If you have credit card debt with 18 to 20% interest, you will never earn that much money in a savings or in investments to pay for that. So take that money that you want to do there, go pay those gosh darn credit cards off. So and that is the biggest thing. You can't, there's no point of saving and you're only earning 8% and you have an 18% credit card, because it doesn't matter how much money you put in there. It's just not, I mean, you're paying more money into their pockets.
Yeah, the credit card's never going to go away. So we've looked at sort of is it, just to be clear as well, banks is the place to go? Are there any other places to go? So you mentioned you can take the money and go to the bank to ask what investments they've got going on. Yeah. Is that the best place to go, or are there other places to go in terms of investments?
There's a lot of other places to go. They have mutual fund companies that just handle that. Banks can handle a lot of those investment vehicles, or they contract with other planners. You can go to a company that I'm thinking of right now is like an Edward Jones type company. I'm not a huge fan of those kind of companies, and not because I think that they're bad people or anything. It's just I don't know for sure what their products, how they sell them, but a lot of companies similar to them will hit you with a penalty when you put your money in. They'll hit you with a penalty when you take your money out, and then they hit you with an annual fee, that maintenance charge. So I mean, you're really losing out on your money when you do companies similar to that. And then there's things called RIAs, and they're investment advisors, and they take more of what they call a fiduciary role, and they usually only charge you fees for what they do. So that's usually like the yearly or the annual maintenance fee, and then they'll charge you a fee to do your financial planning to see what you have in the first place to invest with them. So there's options that you can do. Another option is real estate. You can invest in real estate. You got the stocks and bonds, you got mutual funds. I mean, there's so many different things. You have, you can invest in like treasury bonds. You can invest in your government. You can invest in your local communities, which actually sometimes does have tax advantages for you. You can invest in your state. I mean, there's so many different options. So the best thing to do is talk to an investment advisor. But right before that, it's always better to either set yourself up with a very strict set of goals that you're looking for. That way you're not in there getting car salesmen. So.
Of course, yeah. It all comes back to knowing what it is that you want, that you mentioned right at the beginning. So people that have got like 100 grand that they want to invest, you're better off getting advice, because you don't want to lose the 100 grand, right? You want to make sure that you make something on it. It makes perfect sense.
What I've learned is people can be really keen on what they have. They can know, oh, well, I have a great budget. I have this and that. But then they either, that's what they know. They know what they have, and that's great, but it's, how is it working for you? And that's where these planners come in, into play. And that's where they look at your taxes, and they make sure that your estate planning, a lot of planners, financial planners, they can't go into talking about estate plans and trust. You have to talk to a lawyer about that. But what they can do is say, hey, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? You really should talk to a lawyer. You know, you have your will together. That's what financial planners do. They take all the holes that you thought you thought you knew everything, but you got little holes everywhere, and that's what they do, is they fill in those holes for you, so you have a good game plan.
Yeah, it makes sense to get advice. I think there are lots of people out there. It'll be the last question now, I promise, because there's a lot of people out there that are doing the whole get rich quick or turn $100 into $100,000, and there's a lot of things going around that are like that. So before we finish, I can't let you go without letting you share your thoughts on these sorts of things, and whether it's possible. If it is, I'd love to share some light on it for people that are listening, but also if it's not, what would be your advice regarding that? So someone that does this a lot, this is your profession, right? It's your chance to nip it in the bud almost.
Mm-hmm. I have a little bit of a pet peeve about we paid off $140,000 in 3 months. I get on Facebook and it's just like, an ice pick to the skull. It just drives me nuts. Because, and that, I mean, obviously people that's an advertisement. Yeah. Is, we can get you, so with those people, if they had $140,000 just sitting around not doing anything, and that's how they paid off their bills, what the heck is wrong with them? So and then it's like, okay, so, and then they don't tell you, all right, they paid off $143,000 worth of bills in 3 months. Did they get a second mortgage to pay that off? Because do you have $143,000? Do you make enough to pay off $143,000 in bills in 3 months? So it's more, I don't want to say it's common sense, because what it does, those things, those advertisements, those gimmicks, they play on your emotions is what they do. It just drives me nuts, because to me that is so unethical. But that's what salespeople do, is they promise you the world, and what really should be happening is under what do you call that? It's like telling them that you're going to get less, but over delivering on it. So you just work harder than what you say you're going to work, is my goal. Is it
like under promise, over deliver?
That's it. Yes. And those things, that they just drive me nuts, because I'll see 500, 600, 700 people saying, tell me how I'm going to pay $143,000 off. And it's like, because usually those people barely make $50,000 a year on their own. So they hear, you could pay $143,000 off. They can't. That's just not reasonable, and it's just wrong. It's bad advertising. So my theory on that is, if it sounds too good to be true, please just scroll on. Just keep going past it, because it really is. And people they go and they listen to them, and some people get sold into it, and it's just like, I feel so bad, because it really isn't sustainable why anybody would think that they can pay $143,000 of their bad debt off when they only make $50,000 a year. So, but they don't think like that. They just hear, pay debt off. That's what they heard. They didn't hear anything else.
Yeah, it's almost like you get a mortgage just because the interest is cheaper than what you're paying now. Mm-hmm. And then the mortgage that you get pays off your debt, and you've got less of a mortgage payment than what you had before. So it looks like you're doing really well, when in fact you just sacrificed one or many sets of interest payments for like one or two instead. So there's lots of different ways that the people sort of game the system almost in order to make it seem like they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and if you can get a revolving mortgage or a second mortgage, and it's cheaper than if you have $150,000 worth of credit card debt, all charging you 20% interest. And you can get something, but man, I don't even like to give that advice out, because then you're risking your home if you can't pay that back, you know? So it's like, it's a fine line. It really is. It's at one point you can get it paid off faster and with a lot less interest. But at the other time, do you really want to sacrifice your home for these darn credit cards? You know, so it's a real fine line about that's where your goals come into play. That's okay. What are your values? Does that feel good to you? If that doesn't settle in your stomach very well, don't do it. Yeah. So
nicely said, LeeAnne. Nicely said.
Great
way to finish. How can people learn more about you, LeeAnne, if you wanted to find out more about what it is that you're up to and get involved with some of the things that you're doing?
All right. So I'm getting started with, I just started a Facebook group. I don't even have a picture on it yet. It's called All Things Money. It's a private group, and this is once I start establishing it within the next week or so, it's going to be about, you can ask me any questions. As I start getting bigger, I'm going to try to incorporate professionals that maybe, if I can, lawyers, real estate, you know, what do you call it? Just realtors, lawyers, accountants, all those guys. That way people have specific questions that I cannot answer. There's somebody there that will be able to answer with them. And it's basically also for, I'm going to be a coach and a financial therapist. So if you have money concerns, or if you just want to kind of you have a frustration with your money and you want a safe place to go to relieve those frustrations, and people can respond back, you can go there to do that. I also have a website. It's up, but it's kind of a work in progress. We're working on that. And that is livinglucrum.com. And basically that's about it for right now. But as I keep getting more and more, I'm going to start working into my Facebook group. So.
All right. Awesome. Well, we haven't got anyone live, LeeAnne, so you've got no extra questions, but it's been great to chat. It's been great to have you on the event, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.